All right. Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of What the Tech is Product Management. We have the fortune of having Suhas Motwani on our episode. He's the co-founder of Product Folks, among many other things. We recently bumped into each other during one of his sessions, and I loved his energy. And I think it'll be like a wonderful time. The next 30 to 60 minutes, we want to understand your journey overall. But again, you guys know Shruti and I, we are product managers from the Bay Area, but here Suhas is like he's gonna get like a completely different perspective on how product has been evolving across the world. But before we get this, Suhas, like a quick round of intro, that would be awesome.
Absolutely, and thanks for hosting Nishanth and Shruti. First, I think I love the name. I remember when we were chatting about this, I think you guys have definitely picked a very catchy one. And second, yeah, I loved hosting you guys at the dinner, so it was lovely catching up. I'll just share a little bit about my background very quickly. Started my career in consulting, moved into product with the early stage YC company, spent a couple of years, and this was while I was in India, I was working remotely for a YC company, so very different world back then, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Post which moved to Europe with PepsiCo, built out some interesting stuff with them. Very different world again. One very late stage. Second, Europe in general. Right, I never stepped out of the country before that, so again, very
Oh,
different
yeah.
ecosystem. Both of you all are in the Bay, but India and Europe as ecosystems as well as product cultures are also very very different. Spent a couple of years with them, moved back to India, started tinkering around consumer productivity. I think this was one of the ideas that I always wanted to play around. A friend of mine who I met via the community uh, happened to also, jam on similar ideas at the same time. So I think that was probably got lucky brainstorming with him, and that's something that I've just gone deeper and doubled down on building full time now. It's an app called Indistractable. The idea is to help you focus better. I think we see a lot of young generations around us stuck on their mobile phones every day. Ideas can we help them just build some tools uh, to get back into the real world and live their lives. So that's the space that we're trying to solve. We've started on
Nice.
Android. We've crossed 1 million downloads on the Play Store, so that's scaling pretty fast. And the iOS app should be out pretty soon. So I'd love your feedback.
Yeah.
That's been my full time. But one thing, how we all got connected was through a community that I started about 5.5 years ago. It's a community called the Product Folks. Today, one of Asia's largest product communities with over 200,000 members, and we're slowly scaling this global. The idea is to become that one destination for anyone who loves building products to come together, whether online, whether offline, and help each other out. Right, it's a volunteer driven community, but yeah, all of us are passionate about building products. That's one key thing that brings people together in this community. And yeah, I've been spending some time here in the Bay recently, more for Indistractable, a little bit to see what the product community here looks like, and hopefully spend more time here meeting interesting people like you guys, and yeah, grow both the product and the community here.
No, it's wonderful to have you, Suhash, on our channel. And I should tell everyone that of all the conversations that I've had with Suhas, like it's always been very enlightening. I learn something new coming out, or I end up making a new connection or learning about someone whom I should get inspired for. So we both have been definitely very excited to host you here. So we're really looking forward to our chat.
Thanks. Shruti is being super humble here, guys. Go check out her LinkedIn and drop her a message. She's been up to some very exciting stuff that's coming your way.
Thank you. Thank you. So, without further ado, Suhas and Nishant, I think we should get, into it. Suhas, we would love to get started with knowing a little bit about, you talked about your journey, but what inspired you to start a community around product and also, focus on what you're really good at, which is the go-to-market excellence. Tell us a little bit about that.
Awesome. I think product folks as a community, as much as I'd like to take credit, isn't something that we thought about when we started. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what product management was back when I was in college, right? Today, I think lots of young kids in college are super good at what they do. I don't know how much ChatGPT is helping them, but I'm sure product sense and like the entire awareness around product management has become a lot better than
Yes.
what I knew about it back in the day, right? So I think one thing I realized a little early on when I got into product was the question of why didn't we hear about it? Like if there are my friends who are in the IIT networks or the BITS college, which are premier institutes in India, if they knew about it, if their alumni are there, if their college people knew about it, I think there are talented people across the world in regardless in which college they're. I just felt like there was this opportunity of exposure, right? Sometimes you just don't know about something, and minute you get a chance to explore that a little bit more,
Yeah.
it can change your career, right? Like so I
Yeah.
think with that idea we thought, okay, hey, what happens if we get interesting people in the same room? When I got into my first product role, um, it was slightly selfish because I didn't have a product network, right? Like I broken by accident, and it was me trying to figure, okay, what does the career ladder really look like? I used to read
Hmm.
Andrew Chen's blogs online, and it was very different from what my life as a product management looked like. So I was like, am I doing something wrong here, right? So then I think that's how we got started hosting a couple of these offline events just to understand what does product management look like in other companies.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, maybe I'll just walk away with a couple of friends in this world, right? And I think people were very kind with their time when we reached out to very senior folks across different startups in India, different companies in India. They were willing to give back to the community, and I think that really fueled the start of something like this. uh, Today product management is very different. Everyone's a guru on LinkedIn. But I'll be honest with you, back then I think there was
Shots fired.
definitely a space. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
back
I
then there
think
was definitely a space.
I think for me, like even after 10 years, I figure out something new about product management every day. It's not
Exactly,
by
yeah.
the book kind of
I know,
job,
right?
it evolves with people around you, it evolves with the company you go to. There's just so much people dynamics in play here.
So true, so true, so true. And I think
Exactly,
that's the
exactly.
nuances
So has
that needs to come out a lot more now.
so has I was gonna
Sorry, go on.
zero in on your first instance, right? So you said,
Yeah.
okay, I got into product management. I want to learn more about it. I want to figure out what's in it for me or everyone else like me around me. So, what was your initial thought? Okay, what was the initial format of bringing in people? What were you hoping to accomplish from the first event?
So again, it was pretty simple. We didn't have an idea of building communities back in the day, but I know there was smaller communities across the globe. It wasn't in India. No one was talking about it, but we had seen a couple of events in the Valley in Europe where there were
Hmm.
communities doing this, right? And shout out to them. Honestly, we didn't innovate here. Our idea was,
Sure.
okay, if it's happening there, why can't we bring it here, right? So it was.
Gotcha.
We partnered with, I still remember the first event, we partnered with WeWork. They gave us the office space for free. uh,
Okay.
we didn't have a channel on LinkedIn, or I didn't have a personal following, but I just cold reached out to a bunch of senior folks in the room saying that, hey, we're planning this event. Would you,
Hmm.
be able to spare 20 minutes and just come talk to us? The first event was called A Day in the Life of a PM. I still remember it because we took 30 seconds to spin up a logo on Canva. Canva was awesome back then also. And
Yeah.
it was a stock image that we just changed the letters, right? There were some four letters, and I just changed it to TPF, which is the product folks.
Nice.
Uh, and it's a funny story because you know we thought of the community name as product folks, but the domain wasn't available, and
Hmm.
we were like, "What did we do here?" The product folks was available, and we just changed the name, and we were like, okay, the product folks. And I mean, early days we didn't think too much, but yeah, that's how we got started. We spoke to WeWork, they gave us space. We reached out cold to two senior folks for just giving us like some insights, right? And we told them, just come out, come there. If you can, in 20 minutes, share your journey. What does your day look like? And for everyone else who's looking to grow in their careers, right? There were other product management, early stage, mid stage PMs in the room. But if they really have to grow, what helped you, right? And this is 2019, right? Pre
Hmm.
um,
COVID.
Zorpera boom.
Yeah.
Right? So that was fun. I think I realized, and we got 80 people in the room. We were gave us a small space which could fit 50. The room was packed. And I think that when that went well, I think that gave us a little bit confidence that okay, we're not alone in this boat. There are a lot of people who are interested in this space.
Yeah.
This includes people who were looking to break into product as well, right? Initially,
Yeah.
um, so
And
that's
how
how
did
I
you
think the
figure out
community
the
grew.
band side?
We didn't.
I
We
mean, the
were
80
like
people.
when you're very early, when you're not planning as much, it's just that
Mm,
raw energy, right? Like I think
Yeah.
that's why I said like because it went well is where we
mm.
continue doing it. If that first event bombed, maybe we wouldn't have been building this community.
So
We
Suhas
are
was
both glad it went
scrappy.
well.
So I think
Yeah.
Suhas was scrappy, and Suhas got the product market fit with like just a beta launch, which is very good.
Yeah, I think product market fit, to be honest, came a little later. If you, I think initially is that like the best analogy I'll give you is imagine today if you are a YC founder and
Yeah.
everyone now in the YC batch is creating these videos on Twitter that are going kind of viral,
Yes.
right? So that
Yeah.
is the exact moment where your Twitter video is going viral, but
Yeah.
after that you need to figure out, okay, hey, how is this going to convert to calls? How are those calls going to convert to
Yeah.
meetings? And
Yeah.
how does the flywheel really look like? So that
Yeah.
that is the best analogy I'll give you. Okay, we got a good start,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
post that, scaling it, actually building out the community, scaling it across cities. We were offline only, so actually even pre-pandemic we were doing monthly events across 12 cities, and everything volunteer driven. Even after I moved to Europe, there was people I found on Twitter who ran the community in India, and then slowly we scaled that global. So I think
Great.
lots that early energy teaches you, but because there was no
Mm.
playbook before this, there were one or two communities in India that had done a fantastic job before that. If you have heard of Product Nation, iSpirit, SAS Bhumi, I think Avinash and team have been doing a
Yeah.
fantastic job. In Europe there is Mind the Product that got acquired by
Yeah.
Pendo. They've done
Yeah.
a fantastic job globally. In the valley, I think back in the day there was this community called Startup Grind. I think we derived a lot of our I'd say early inspirations from them because they scaled to almost 220 cities globally. That's
Mm.
insane from a community perspective. And then again, I think just matching some of these playbooks back to India and trying to do it for the product vertical, I think that's where most of our learnings have come from.
Definitely. I mean, that's great to hear, Suhas. And like, that leads to our next topic as well, right? Like community. I've started recently to work in data engineering dev space, right? And I feel like community has become such an important angle if you really want to drive that bottom up motion. Usually earlier when enterprise tools started to sell, they'll sell it to the CTOs, CIOs of the world. But now everything, a lot of it is in control of the person who's actually practicing it. So
True.
tell us a little about community-led growth, and some things that both Nishant, I, and our viewers can learn.
Actually, to touch upon what you mentioned, it's not just the early stage, right? Right now, I've been brainstorming with a lot of early stage founders on how they can build communities. Whether you're at the beta level, there are a lot of beta communities, design partners that you can look at. So I've been chatting with them right now. But to be honest with you, the largest of brands here in the US as well. Um, I'll give you some interesting ones that you all might not know about. All of us have used the consumer facing part of Airbnb, right? Like when you open Airbnb um, as a platform. But
Mm-hmm.
if you go to, they have a huge community platform on the support side. So they have almost 1 million hosts who are on a community together. And if you think of the early days, right, this support forum, it became a support forum of sorts. One helped you reduce the cost because hosts were helping each other. Even
Yeah.
today, if you see, when you raise a support request, there is someone from a community team that actually responds to you. It's not someone, if you book a Airbnb today and you raise a support ticket,
Mhm.
um, I think they have some data on this, but almost 70% of the time it's someone from the community only stepping up to respond to this, right?
And I
Uh,
never knew about this. And this is
I,
like when you think
let me
about a
put
dev platform, it comes so naturally to you that a
exactly right.
developer is answering another developer's question. But like, okay,
Yes.
Airbnb doing that, like
And
something else.
there's actually an entire article I'll share with you if you want to share it with your listeners as well, where
Yes.
in marketplaces that
Yeah.
marketplaces are very hard to crack because supply in general is super hard to crack, right? So we are all on the consumer side of Airbnb, but this entire community helped them scale the supply side of things because once you have this community of early hosts that are coming together, if you can enable them to really do well, then they pull in other people into this, right? That then them supporting each other,
Yeah.
then supporting consumers. So there is a huge, not just cost saving, but in a marketplace to kick off supply. I think this is
Yeah.
a great example.
Yeah.
You spoke about data platforms. I think one that I love going back to even today is how Tableau has done it really well for the community, right? Very underrated, but I think on the back of how Tableau has built their entire community, there are a lot of platforms that just follow this playbook, right?
Yeah.
um, Another one is Salesforce, right? All of us keep talking about, but you should check out their, I mean, yes, they have their pros and cons, but the entire model that they've created for the trailblazer, that's their
Yeah.
community. I
Yeah.
think this will become almost a gold standard for a lot of other larger
Mhm.
platforms to start building out community, right? So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think underappreciated for sure, but I think especially in the recent days, I think we're seeing this to come out not just with early stage companies, but these are large brands that we're all talking about. These are billion-dollar companies investing so much back into the community.
No, it's definitely
Fair
wonderful.
point. And that
Yeah,
was like kicking off, like again, going a little bit more tactical on the community side, right? So I think we have established the importance of having a community, but imagine you're a startup and you want to make that your sales channel eventually,
yeah,
right? So, how, what are some first principles way of thinking about this process? What is it
yeah,
that you're trying to do, and how are you motivating that initial innovators to come together and try your product and help each other out? Uh,
yeah. Yeah, especially for early stage, I'll give you two, three examples. I think definitely it depends on what you're building, etc. But like, I'll give you some interesting examples where I think community can really, really help you. In an AI world, I think one thing all of us can agree is building products is only becoming a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Today,
yeah.
in a week, in 2 weeks, you could ship out an MVP for 90% use case. Of course, there are going to be the harder use cases that are at the ends of the bell curve. But at least when you're trying to test out an idea, say you have an hypothesis, you want to validate it, in 2 to 4 weeks, you know you can ship something without a very large team, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
If you can do that today, then just imagine the earlier where we had a technical moat. I think slowly in an AI world that is going to come down and down, right? At least on the application side. But what
Hmm.
is not going away or what is only going to get harder is your distribution, right? How do you get people to even understand what you're building? So my thesis is, especially to early stage folks, spend a lot more time in discovering the problem. I think a lot of people talk about this as product people, we talk about it, but while you're doing that, can you just build a community, either a support community, right? These are people you've chatted with, resonate with the problem, get interesting people in the same group, right? This eventually can translate into more of a design partner slash beta community. Once you
Yeah.
narrow down, okay, hey, this is the problem we're building, there will be a smaller subset of the people that you've spoken to. Say you've spoken to 150 people, right? And
Hmm.
community, by the way, doesn't only mean that, okay, hey, we have to get everyone in one group and then engage them in a group. That isn't it, right? Think of it as any other funnel that you would nurture, right? End of day, it is about how one-to-one interactions are happening within a larger space,
Hmm.
and eventually you translate that into a many to many. That's where the community really comes together, right?
Yeah.
But initially when you're starting, it's completely okay, right? Like three of us are chatting, you've had some interactions. Real community, I mean, the larger community layer gets kicked off when I can now enable, okay, if there are 10 people here, we've been able to enable them to, really connect with each other.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the second side effect of this coming together, if you're able to really do that well, and tying this back to my distribution point, is you need early believers to really support you,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
how do you get community, and your community love that they keep talking about, is essentially these set of people backing them. You need to figure out incentive mechanisms for them, how do you keep them engaged, etc., all of that. But if done well, your first 100 users are going to come from the community. Your first 100 backers, it could be angel investors, it could be people who help you raise fund because they've seen your journey, right? They've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
involved somewhere in your community. And third is when you start going out there launching your product, these are the people who are going to back you, right? So for very early stage founders, I think if done well, while you're figuring out what you're building, who you're building for, etc., one thing that you can definitely do is create this support community. And by support community, I don't mean like the chat support, but basically your company support, right? So these could be
Yeah.
people who end up investing in your company. It could be people who eventually become design partners. It could be people who can help amplify a message, etc. Right. So I think that is where I think I want a lot of people, at least early stage founders, to start thinking a lot more about. And as that scales, I think the community that you want to build can scale. Like I think there are enough examples, and maybe through our conversation or much later, happy to share more on those also.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, Suhas, it really sounds like a product manager thing, right? Like when you launch a product,
Exactly.
like right now, for example, I'm doing a private preview and trying to figure out the motive. Like, motivation is obviously before private preview, and then you work with like key set of design partners and iterate on the
Yeah.
product till it gets to a level where they can actually adopt it, like let's say in our world from a production point of view. And then like we blog with them, we do sessions with them, we do summit with them, so they end up kind of become that key enabler, and recommendation system where other people who share the same motivation can start coming into our funnel as well. So it's very similar.
200%.
Yeah, it's very similar
If you
although.
ask me,
Yeah,
yeah, if you ask me, actually, I have a slide on this. I've done a workshop recently where I have a slide that says, in my opinion, 90% of product management and community management is almost the same, right? So
yeah,
if you're a good product manager, you can become a very good community manager if you want to be. But the
yeah,
principles, and the more we talk about it, more you'll realize the principles are almost the same. The only
Hmm.
10% that I think is something that I feel people need to do a lot better, or I need to figure out, is products can scale. Can communities really scale effectively, right? Products
yeah,
can scale effectively.
yes,
How do
yes,
communities
Hmm.
scale effectively? That's something that I think is a very, very fine line. We all keep talking that today. I think there's a very fine line between an audience and a community. But if you can
yeah,
nurture communities at scale, I think that's a superpower.
yeah. And what
Amazing.
are your
Yeah.
tips around like nurturing community at scale?
I think it's been done right. Like I'll give you the weirdest example. Weird because we're doing it on a tech. I think we're talking about it from a tech lens, right? But we all come from India. You've heard about platforms like ISKCON and Art of Living,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
At the heart of it, if you think of it, like these are millions of people that are believing in something. Whether you can be on either side of it, right? Doesn't matter. But if you see at the heart of it, these have existed for centuries. Religion, I think, has
yes,
existed for centuries. People religiously go to a temple every Sunday to pray, for example, right? Some particular
Hmm.
day. There is a faith in something deeper. People connect over, they bond over something. Um, I think there is a certain element of magic in making that happen. And that if they
yeah,
can do it at that scale, just imagine
yeah,
if that can come through. And now take that example, but move to more. If you see like Jain communities, for example, right, I'm giving you another example. Jain communities have these amazing mixers, quote unquote mixers, right?
yeah,
But these mixers, of course, for something else. But the amount of money that flows through that, right? Now I'm trying to
yes,
add another angle to it.
yes,
Now take that example and bring that in a startup context, right?
yeah,
Actually, if community is done at scale, and backstage we were discussing about one example,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
That is exactly this, right? People are connecting over a shared mission
yes,
and
Yeah.
deriving billions of dollars of, if done well, right? We
yes,
have an
yes,
example of people or a community that's done it really well.
yeah,
What's stopping us from learning? So I think this is maybe a little different analogy, but if you see at scale, brought to another context, it's actually happening for
yeah,
centuries, right? So it's just
Fun you bring up ISKCON actually because after 5, 6 years, I went to ISKCON this Sunday. I'm not even kidding.
oh, nice. Oh, nice.
And I was just telling my wife that it's probably a very smart thing to do what ISKCON does, where we made our principles a little bit more Western friendly. There are
Hmm.
components of it, again, it's very controversial, but if you think about it, the parts of it which typically don't get done in a typical Krishna temple. Here it's a lot more fun. I don't know if you've been there recently, but it was almost like a concert. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, really?
yeah,
People were
yeah,
like just going in circles. I'm like, I was getting goosebumps, and I was trying to
Oh,
have
nice.
my kid learn from around, and it's just like a lot of different vibe. Historically, Hindu traditions have been like a little bit more like conservative. They're like, okay, do this, don't do that, like very prescriptive, right? But here they made it fun, and
Oh,
all of a
interesting.
sudden it becomes accessible to a lot of people. So that empathy piece of it, where we're saying we have some nice thing to say, but the medium needs to be a little bit different. Understanding that is probably part of like that community building, because as you expand, I'm guessing like what worked in India may not necessarily completely translate to how you're going to expand product folks in a Bay Area or a Europe, right?
Correct.
There'll be all those
Yeah.
nuances
Precisely.
that you'll have to pay attention to. So,
Absolutely
but
agree.
it's like brilliant that you're thinking about like how religion has been like a massive community to begin with, and they're like first
Yeah.
principles that you can pick up from there too.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about controversial, I'll tell you on this example, I don't know about the ISKCON temple here, or not talking about ISKCON, but in general, I think someone had shared this with me, so I'll share this with you also. Um, in my opinion, right, and in this particular example also, if you see, food is an enabler. If you see, a lot of
Oh yeah,
temples give prasad, right?
Mhm.
Many people who aren't a believer, or haven't been there for the first time, I think you need a hook, right?
yeah,
So I
Yes.
think this
Yes.
could be, I mean, this was a very interesting thing he said, that okay, hey, figure out, okay, what that is for them. And of course the beliefs and all follow through, right? A lot of people still come back for that, but for a newer place, for a newer time, just figure out. And they figured that the temple prasadam could be one
oh
thing to
yeah,
The
get
oh yeah.
Yes.
people, yeah,
Yes.
so eventually. And that could, I mean, yeah, I know we're going on a very different tangent
No,
right now,
no. Let's
but
make it
yeah.
controversial and make this viral. There'll be hundreds of followers tomorrow.
Yeah,
No,
no,
I
but
mean,
it's a
even
very interesting learning. Yeah,
yeah, even in
Absolutely.
colleges, right? Like we used to go to any place, right? Like whether it be like a, again, from a controversial point of view, like a Christian seating or like a any church seating, just to get free food, or like to an Indian temple, right? That was the intention. And then if you
exactly right.
ended up learning something new about a religion,
Yeah,
that's an additional
yeah.
benefit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people become believers that way. At the end of the day, it's just one thing that brings you to it. 100 out of 100 might not, right? A lot of people are
Yes.
drawn to it for
Absolutely.
different reasons. But even if every Sunday out of 100 new people that are coming in, if 10 people end up continuing through, I think that flywheel is something. Even in communities, for example, you cannot please everyone, right?
Yeah.
Just like in products, everyone's not a user. If everyone's a user, you're definitely not going to be able to go. So you need to
Yeah.
follow that.
It's
I think
like,
it's very similar.
yeah, and like, I'm connecting the dot. Like for some product, people start their journey because it's cheap, and then they
Yeah,
can stick to it. They cannot stick to it. They can stick to it because they end up finding more items, or like whatever
yeah,
it is, right? Like because of the actual value prop. But the driver is
yeah.
something that might not end up being the only value prop of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 No,
So
that's
it all
interesting.
starts with the free pizza if you're building a community. And then we'll see
Or cheap
if it
software,
sticks.
right?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, free
and that's
software,
gonna
that's
get
fine.
harder now. So yeah, I think the biggest learning here is if everyone's doing it, you need to figure out something new. So back in the day, I
Yeah.
think this could be a good hook. But if there are there's a natural expansion, right? Today there are so many product communities, right?
Yeah.
Initially, a lot of them were solving the breaking into product. Now there are enough people doing that, but we're all product people. We still crave for certain parts that we all know are still unsolved for, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
opens up new domains. So I think as the market matures, there will be a wedge that is still unsolved for. Can you be early to that? Can you solve for that? And eventually people will come through on that also. So I think if you can just be slightly more early, I think just like in communities, I think that is important. Can you keep innovating? If you're stuck at still solving for, in our example, right? If you're still stuck at solving for breaking into product, even though there are a lot of people who still want to break into product, right? But if you continue doing that and you don't innovate there, I think most communities, I think, make that mistake, and I see a lot of them dying out from there.
Oh, that's very
Definitely.
interesting. It's almost like you have your early adopters, they got the value, but you should
Yeah,
continue to try and add value to them along the way so that you're able to figure
exactly,
out the next terms along with them.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting.
yeah. I think a community is for its members, right? If they don't grow in this, if they don't continue to fall, it's like a it's like you're acquiring with a leaky bucket, right? Like if there is no value prop for them, 2 years, 3 years, if you need to figure out, okay, hey, as they are growing in that, it's essentially how do you help them continue growing. It's a lifelong journey with your community.
Yep, yep. That
Amazing.
makes sense. That's what we are trying to do. We started with like how to break into product management. What is
Nice.
product management? Now we are talking about go to market and stuff, which is
Yeah,
scaling your career. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Nishan, you want to go with the next question?
One sec.
I caught
Yeah,
Nishan
keep
by
them
mistake.
coming.
No
That's fine.
problem.
Like
That's
we
fine.
can go off script, not a problem.
Uh, so, tell us about like some of the early mistakes that you have made along the way, and some of the learnings that you think other people should take away, again, whether it is a product function based community or like a software based community. What are some things that you got wrong and we all should be learning from?
Yeah, I think we got too many things wrong. I'll be honest with you because we were not following something. But if you were to ask me one thing I would have done differently, that's top of my mind. I think, especially in the pandemic, I feel we grew too fast. Right, we were very excited by the scale of growth that online brought for us. We were very early into it and worked really well for us. Is as and when I think the market started maturing, we were only in India in the initial days. Uh, Offline limits you a little bit, right? But what offline did really well for us is it brought like this tight community together, which was awesome. Pandemic allowed us to go online and scale. The good part of that is we grew fast, but I think if you ask me today, I think I would do that in a much more staggered approach. I think that back then, I don't think we had checks and balances. I think we were growing and growing. And somewhere, I think when you grow too fast, the community doesn't bond as well, right? We were in, like, I think, a 2 year period where we scaled. But while
Hmm.
scaling, I think the larger challenges that came through and we realized only 2 years later is, hey, numbers by numbers we've scaled, right? But do people still have that bond? And then how are we very different from just like, say, for example, someone running a newsletter, right? For us, I think the basic difference between an audience and a community is very simple, right? An audience is where you have a one to many interaction, and a community is where you have a many to many interaction. A many to many interaction will only happen when there's a deeper connect behind it, right? Like when people really feel part of it. So I think that's one of
And
the
how are
biggest
you
learnings.
measuring that? I mean, this whole idea that, okay, interactions,
So,
what were
so
some
there are
metrics you
two.
were looking at?
There are tools today that allow you to understand the member. There was a tool earlier which we used to call Threado, which used to it's a community intelligence platform basically,
Okay.
which tells you the different touch points that we have in our community. For us, for example, newsletter, social media could be the larger touch points.
Mm-hmm.
Slack, WhatsApp groups could be the more narrower touch points. But there could be a single user that's across all of it, right? He or she could receive our email, he or she could interact with our Twitter, LinkedIn post. They could come to an offline event, they could be active in a Slack group, they could be active on WhatsApp groups, right? Different touch points. I think that helped us measure. You can just attach it to. It's not easy, I think. Definitely, they had its own challenges and probably why it doesn't exist anymore. But in an
Mm.
ideal world, I think we would love for a platform that could measure, and they had done a phenomenal job at it. I think maybe didn't make monetary sense, or maybe not enough people paying for it. But if you ask me, I think we were able to measure who is active to a what extent in the community.
Mm.
Today, unfortunately, we don't have exact data because that tool shut down. But how we're
Okay.
measuring this now is a little bit more of a funnel approach, that hey, people sign up, get to read our newsletter at least once every week. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out to everyone.
Mm.
Post which, the more engaged one come into our Slack group, which is by number. I think we have about 200,000 on the newsletter. We have about 55,000 on our Slack, and we have about 120 WhatsApp groups. So it's like a funnel now. Essentially, more
Mm.
engagement, bottom of the funnel, little less in Slack, and of course, newsletter is just one way, right? So these three, and then on top of newsletters, there are social channels. We have approximately, I think, 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. We have about 60,000 on Twitter. We have
I see.
another 45,000 on YouTube. So I think the social channels are much larger, but we don't count that as community. I think that's more of like media for us.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
That's
yeah,
like a pull factor for you, like how people can
correct.
find it. Yeah,
They can
yeah,
discover. Yeah, it's more of a discovery for
yeah,
us.
yeah.
I see. But again, going back to your earlier point, you were saying, okay, we scaled too quickly, and then in the process,
Yeah,
you were compromising on the quality of connections that were happening. And how did
correct.
you course correct at that point?
I think we've gone back to offline, to be honest. I think post pandemic, what we did is essentially go back to our members, right? Or at least the ones who had joined us in the beginning. Many of them were still volunteers with us. Many of them have now grown in their careers as well. People who joined as mid-senior PM back in the day are all pretty senior. Actually, went back to them to understand, okay, hey, how is the landscape shifting, and what is something that you wish we were coming out of a pandemic maybe 1.5, 2 years ago. I think in 2023, today we're in 2025. That's when we went back to them to understand, okay, hey, this is where we are right now. We spoke to at least, I think, 200 people back then, at least personally where I was involved. There is more of the team, but just to understand, okay, hey, which direction is a community tending to go, and if you guys have any other ideas, right? So I think involving some of our early members back there, uh, and this insight came from them itself that hey, pandemic mein you guys have grown, but have we really interacted with so many more PMs? Maybe not, right? So I think that's where we course corrected. Now, if you see, we have more of a hybrid community post pandemic. If you see,
Hmm.
somewhere we brought down our online activities, but a lot more offline. And offline also is now segmented. I think what we've done is we've been trying to build layers of offline communities. GrabChai is our community driven initiative, which is happens across. I think we're in at least 15 cities out of the 28 cities we're in. It happens every month. Post which we have now more now as the community has grown, we have mid senior folks in the community also. So we do very curated stuff for them, in different verticals. Like the one that you guys attended was the Serendipity, which is more of a supper club format. We have Secret Society, that's mostly just senior folks in the community. So we're trying to segment our community itself, and for different cohorts, do different stuff, so that at least they get to meaningfully interact with each other, while all the other stuff on education, mentorship, opportunities continues growing for the larger community.
Oh my God, this just shows Suhash how many different dimensions you're thinking about. I'm like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
still learning
I
in
know,
this whole
right?
No, that has been
podcast.
fun. It's been fun.
So
Yeah. So
fascinating.
going back, I think we talked a lot about your, like product folks, how you scaled it, how you're like, dimensionalizing it to address different customer segments. Tell me a little bit about the app as well. I am very
Yes,
intrigued by the app that you're building, and I'm like hoping to get it on iOS very soon.
yes, 100%. We've been working hard on that. The idea there is, and I'll give you a number um, that I recently discovered. Last year in the US alone, almost $25.5 billion was spent on ADHD meds, right? Um, this, of course, we're not positioning the app or the category this way, but just goes on to tell you that um, even if and in our perspective, and research says this as well, that a huge or a significant portion of this, right, is definitely something that can be solved without medicines, right? There's enough research to say that, and there are a lot of people looking into this. So if the younger generations are struggling with so much of just dis- uh, basically, I can't say distraction free lives, because I think that's a very ideal state. But if there's so much chaos going on in their lives, if there is so much struggle in just focusing, I think if we could just build some tools to bring back some peace and anxiety free days in their lives, I think that is the space that we want to play in. We
Mm-hmm.
started with a simple minimalist Android launcher, because both me and my co-founder were in India. We were both using Android devices,
Mm-hmm.
and it started as a side project, right? So essentially we were just trying to solve for ourselves. Today, I think when we have like significant growth, I think one thing we realize, okay, there are more people struggling with this, and idea is technology, if used correctly, is a huge
Yeah.
enabler.
Yes.
But over the last decade, I think social media apps and the algorithms have just sucked you into this entire ecosystem, that even if you don't want to be part of it today, your
Yeah.
dopamine receptors in your body are just so used to it that
Yeah.
you have no choice, right? So
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
essentially, can we build technology apps that can help you just live more meaningful lives? That
Yep.
is the idea of Indistractable.
Yep.
Started with a minimalist Android launcher, so cuts out distractions on devices. It's a clean
Can you tell more
interface.
about
It's
like what do we mean by that? How do we cut out distractions for the viewers? Yeah.
So okay, I'll tell you where we started and where we're going. Where we started was, there has been a lot of research that says, okay, hey, if you use grayscale mode on your, suppose you're an iPhone also, if you just switch to grayscale mode, I can assure you you will come down on your screen time, right? And we can play a small uh, like exercise even on this call. Uh, do you know how much time you'll spend on your devices today? Like just a rough number. You can both of you can check it regardless of
7
whichever
hours.
device you are on. 7 hours on your device.
Like phone?
Yeah, I'm on Zoom calls.
Ah, then okay, that's fine. Like I mean, as long as it's productive, that's
Just on,
okay.
okay, okay. You mean like
Outside of
Instagram,
work.
WhatsApp?
Yeah,
Hmm.
whatever you
I would say,
consider, like, yeah,
I think at least an
I
hour
would
and a
say,
half, right? Like,
no,
hour
at
and a
least two
half,
to
right?
three hours for me. Yeah.
2 to 3 hours, right? Like, y'all are
Yeah.
still far ahead of the cohort, right? Like, I'll give you some numbers, and this you can go. I mean, if I was offline with you, I would have made you open your digital wellness or focus mode on iOS, and we could check which are your top 10 apps today. That data is available, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
But why I told you you're far ahead is because average time spent by an average adult in the US alone on TikTok is greater than 40 minutes. And this is for an average cohort, right? In the younger cohorts, this is 1 hour 23 minutes, right?
Wow.
Imagine younger generation is spending, and now just extrapolate this, right? One
yeah,
and a half hours, for example, just TikTok, add everything else, and I'm taking base, okay, 1.5 hours a day, right? That means 10 hours a week, 40 hours a
yeah,
month. Let's extrapolate this now, right? Into
Hmm.
12, into say of a life expectancy is we all live say 80 years, right?
yeah.
That means almost just imagine 7 years or 8 years of your life are just going scrolling a 6-inch device, right?
Oh my God, you're
And
putting things in perspective for sure.
perspective, right? Yeah, I think this is just something that we are learning that okay, hey, if this is spending so much time, I'm telling you, this is on one app. Now,
Yeah,
if you cross this and say today we are at an age where we're using maybe 2 3 hours, if I could just help you save 30 minutes every day, right? That's
yeah,
it, not more than that. And for the
yeah,
younger cohorts, if you could help them save an hour every day,
yeah,
for a million users today, a
yeah,
million hours saved every day, and they could use it on whatever. For you and me, it could be productivity, could mean that, hey, I could focus more on our work. For someone else,
yes,
it could just be I could spend more time with my children, right? If I'm not
yeah,
stuck on this. For someone else, it could just be like with my partner today. If you observe, right, anecdotally, next time
yes,
you're sitting in a
yes,
coffee shop, if there
yeah,
is a couple sitting next to you, and you know, just sitting next to each other and scrolling, these are anecdotal examples that I have from like cousins and friends and family. And they're like, okay, hey, mm, and I can assure you, okay, one thing is monetization is something we've not figured that I can assure you. But the problem, whoever we talk to, everyone says this problem is real, right?
yeah. I
I
think,
think,
and it's not
yeah,
just about the attention deficit, right? Like, I've also felt like a lot of folks go into depression when they go onto social media just because they feel that their life is not enough compared to what they're seeing. Like it's it's
exactly.
it's not a reality check. It's like a bluff check at that point.
That's the second order effects. Honestly, that's it is so true. And enough has been written about this also. Is earlier in the day we were not in such a hyper connected world, right? You
Yeah,
might be doing amazing today, right? Just go back and think you all we are probably doing really well. But minute you open social media, and it's not just Instagram today, if you open LinkedIn also, right, in our professional career, honestly we're doing fairly well, okay? But including me, sometimes I go out there and I meet people and I'm like, okay, dude, am I even doing something worthy with my life, right? I think we have gotten into such a world. And Instagram, for example, when you
yeah,
spoke about it, right,
yeah,
y'all are living in the prettiest part of the world. The minute you open, you're like,
Hmm.
okay, your friends are maybe partying in Europe, or there is someone else who's, who maybe like who doesn't have a kid today is partying out at 10 p.m. and you're like, okay, like, am I even not living my life, right? Like, so I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that part
There's
is something.
and
Yeah.
that's the second part, and like coming from like security world, like I feel like your data can be abused in like so many
Oh yes,
manners. Like
oh
so
yes,
Yeah.
that's I
Yeah.
think like your app is solving three parts. You're starting first value proposition is like attention deficit,
focus.
but I can see like all the three, and this is the exact discussion that I have with my husband. Like tech was founded to be enabler, but slowly it's becoming the opposite part of it in many ways.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
It almost
exactly.
like it's fueling the ADHD nature of humans, like where if you on a daily basis, like, I mean, imagine us 20, 30 years ago, right? On a given day, the highs you would experience is probably food. Once in a while, meet some family, talk to a
yes,
friend, expect and wait for a letter. So all of this was like over a span of a month or a week. And
Yeah,
imagine all of that happening in a split second between three
yeah,
apps. And now
yeah,
all of a sudden you're like craving for the next high that you want to look for, and it's not going to be there. After one
yes.
hour, you better be out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to be that rabbit hole that you end up in.
Yeah.
And
It's
this
like
is
almost like
exactly it. You nailed it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes me feel
And
of
you know what it leads
like
to?
the
Yeah,
drugs
sorry.
that we get, no? That's exactly how I feel about it. Where like the next drug is not enough anymore. No matter how funny it is, you
Exactly.
won't laugh.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
sorry, go
nailed it.
ahead.
No, no, I was just going to add just this, that after some time, your dopamine receptors get fried, right? Like we get so many highs. You nailed it, right? Exactly what you said, right? You got so much high. In fact, I'll send you some articles. This is the same high that someone gets when they take cocaine. It's actually that bad. People don't realize it today because the industry is only 10 years old, right?
Hmm.
The drug was maybe 65 years old, right? It got when people started discovering it. In this 10 years, people have still not started seeing the ill effects, right? And um, I don't comment on it. I think ADHD is used so loosely today. But in all honesty, I think for the younger generation, it's a lot harder. I think we grew up in a world that was slightly more offline.
Oh yeah.
People jokingly around us tell that, okay, hey, you know, and it's not their fault as well. But I think the ill effects are to be seen. And that's why I keep telling a lot of people that I think we are still too early building this product, right? 3, 4, 5 years from now is where the younger generation who've grown up in a digital first world, um, yeah, I think
Oh yeah.
that is where that cohort of members, helping them really deal with one, societal pressures, second, just what Shruti spoke about is, okay, your hyper local pressure, third, yes, you've been exposed to so many of these highs so early that by the time you're in your late teens, right, you already experienced all of that. So then, okay,
Life
hey,
is done.
where does the next high come from? So I think that uh, culmination, we are seeing early effects of that. It's only going to
Yeah.
increase unless someone really comes in and takes a pause and does something about this now.
I'm sorry, we completely digressed from indistractable. So if you go back, so you were saying, okay,
Very
gray
much.
mode is one of them. And then like, what are the different ways, again, people can use the product? Because again, let's use this as a way
Yeah,
to educate people because
yeah,
again, we're not monetizing yet. So you're helping
yeah,
people to begin with.
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's think in terms of like, what are the benefits for someone like me or Shruti who's like
yeah,
in the Bay Area,
yeah,
stressed out at work, stressed
yeah,
at life, a bunch of
yeah,
things are happening, right? So like, what do we
yeah.
do? How does it help?
I'll tell you, yeah, I'll tell you where we started and where we're going now. So where
Sure.
we started was the concept of a brick phone, right? Essentially, what if we could enable, and an Android, if we can do launcher, that means essentially we can control the OS to a certain extent, right? So we control the lock screen, we control the home screen, we control the icons, and
Mm-hmm.
two main USPs. We make it a minimalist Android phone for you. Regardless of what you want to use, you can only keep 4 apps on the home screen. And by
Mm.
Grayscale, it's a very clean, minimalist, black and white interface. One,
Okay.
no color. Two, if in the onboarding you are allowed to keep only 4 apps, what are those 4 apps that you would place on your device, right? By the way, we also monetize, and something that we figured out recently from
Mm.
data, it said that people end up keeping more than 4 apps initially. Our default free mode allows you to keep only four. If you want to customize background, home screen, or you want to place say 5 or 6 apps on the home screen, then we have a pro version, which is essentially
Mm.
where we charge $5 a month, right? And we still it's dynamic pricing, depends on where you're downloading this app from. It could be much lesser or a little bit more because we are also figuring this out. And
Sure.
we come from India, so we still want to keep like the PPP, the parity on. Um, but how this is going about the next level, so this is where we are at today on Android. iOS doesn't allow you to do launchers, so I think the first version that we're launching, that we've tested one or two that didn't work too well, but where we're launching from is we're going in the direction of positive reinforcement, right? So in the onboarding, if you as an iOS user download the app, you can tell us what is one habit you're trying to build that we can possibly measure using the device. And while we block out distractions by cutting down notifications, etc., what we will do is every time, and in the onboarding you will select what are the apps that you are distracted on, but minute you try going back to that app while you are in your focus mode, at that point of time we will nudge you towards your habit. Like an example is, suppose you select that, hey, I want to be fit, right? So we break that down to steps, and steps is something we can measure. So imagine if you go back to Instagram or Twitter or whatever your distracting app that you've locked out in your focus mode, minute you click that, we will nudge you to take 100 steps, for example, which otherwise will take only 2 minutes. but imagine that compounding over time, you will hit your goal of the steps that you want to take, right? So we're breaking
Mm.
down this big large goal. So we're basically mapping habitats and
Yeah.
distraction or screen time, and trying to build a flow, right? So basically help you cut down screen time, but at the
Yes.
same
Mm.
time break that big habit that you want to build into smaller chunks, and show you that, okay, hey, if that compounds without you knowing, that compounds will help you, and then now you can track a lot of things. So but in V1 we will not do that. In V2 we'll essentially again bombard you with, the small wins that you've had, right? Essentially, okay, hey, you've won. So that positive reinforcement we feel could be a huge driver for us.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've already won your first customer. I really need that.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah, it could
Anytime
be anything. Like,
I would probably put Slack in that. Anytime I open Slack, I need to take like 100 steps.
imagine that should be fun, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely shoot you. Maybe 4 weeks from test flight. So I'd love your feedback whenever we have that go
Definitely.
through. I'll shoot that to
Definitely.
you. And then eventually, if you ask me where do we want to go from here, we feel the whole category of digital wellness could be a very interesting category that comes out of here.
Yeah.
You mentioned stress very interestingly, right? So we're starting with screen time because we think that could be a wedge to enter. But
Mhm.
apps like Calm and Headspace have existed forever, right?
Yes.
Today in an AI world, I think, can we make those personalized for you? Right? They've done
Yes.
a great job, no doubt. But
Yes.
our wedge to entry could be screen time. Maybe we figure out a better wedge eventually.
Yeah.
We start here, and then uh, I think digital wellness is where we want to give you a digital. Today, I think if you've seen apps like Aura, Ultra Human, they give you a sleep score. We
Yeah.
want to get to a time where we can give you like a wellness score or a productivity score.
And I
Very
think,
early days, but yeah,
yeah,
that's where
and
we
I
want.
think it's like I was just talking to someone, who said that, we are so much in rush that we don't realize what's happening to our mind and body. And he said like he recently had a stroke, like it was all of the
Yeah,
sudden just working, working, working. So I think it happens when, and by the time you realize it, it's either too late or a lot of time has passed when you could have course corrected it. So I am like,
yeah.
I use Hoop, I use Aura. The
Oh,
only thing
nice.
I need to get off is like Slack because
That's a
so
hard one. That's a hard one.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
only one that like keeps me and my family very unhappy about me.
yeah.
Build
No, I
that
agree.
startup, get acquired by Snowflake, and uninstall Slack. That's the path.
Yeah. I think
But
Yeah.
somewhere spending my time in Europe helped me think through the direction. I think India and Bay Area, and maybe we could speak to us straight on cultures across different ecosystems. But I think they found a really nice balance, right? From the outside, you could say that, okay, hey, life is very chill. But in all honesty, the time that they're at work, they work really hard, but they also carve out time to do other things with family, for travel, summer. I think that brings them back
Yeah.
refreshed to their environment, right? You can always talk pros
Yes.
and cons, but I think that is one thing that I'll carry off from there,
yeah,
that an extra zero on your bank account at the age of 80, yes, you can buy three more homes in the Bay Area, and I know it's expensive here, but in all honesty, I think if you really want to live for experience, and nothing wrong, by the way, right? Lots of people enjoy their
Right.
lives that way, that gives them their kick. But there is like a lot in your life, in your mid 20s and your mid 30s, which you can balance out, like work hard, but at the same time these experiences are something that you can't do when you're 50, right? So if you can
Yes.
balance that, and I'm not telling, okay, just go play and have fun also, but yeah,
Yeah. It
if
has
there's
to
a
be a
way
good
to,
balance. Yeah.
yeah, if you
yeah.
can find that balance, I think that is something that that's the, I think, the philosophy with which we are building this, that there is a world out there today, I think, like by like by a choice that we're all sitting, honestly, we're all sitting behind laptops and working, right? 8 hours of a day we're working behind laptop. Yes, there is a lot of collaboration angle and we can make our lives look glorious, but yeah, if we can figure out, sweet spots in between, wherein,
Yes.
when we look back, we're like, okay, hey, this is also fun,
Yes.
while still having like those three homes in the Bay Area. I think if we can figure out a very nice middle ground, I think that's where we're trying to build this app
Yeah.
for people.
No, we're really looking forward to this.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Nishant, any further thing that you want to ask Suhas? We are almost on the top of the hour.
Yeah, how much do you hate us for taking 90 minutes of your day already? No,
No,
I'm
not
just
at
kidding.
all.
Like this was fun. Like
Yeah,
really appreciate you sharing the entire journey. I really appreciate the part. Again, I wanted to uh, throw a call back onto the value prop, right? So this is very common in raising kids as well. So you redirect them, right? So
Hmm.
when kids have a lot of energy, the answer is
Yeah.
not like don't shout. That is
Mm.
dumbest thing you can do to them, right? Even for
Mm.
adults or kids
Mm.
in the form of adults, right? We also have certain expectations. The easiest way is not to ask them to stop right away, which some of the apps are like, oh, we will not allow to get into Instagram.
Yeah.
Great. I'll go back
Yeah.
and change the settings and I'll go back in. Versus like
Exactly.
nudging them towards, okay, let's try and get you better at it, but also operate at a much more physical and mental level where
Yeah.
the kind of dopamine that you're looking for, you might also be getting out from exercising or like eating something healthy or like going for a walk or talking to a friend,
Exactly.
right? I know talk to a
Exactly.
friend today is only meaning digital, but it's far better than just engaging with like mindless content, right? So like
Correct.
again, those redirectings might be very interesting. I'm rooting
Yeah.
for your app. I'll really look forward to
Yes.
the iOS app and like yeah, would
Thanks so
love
much.
to share some feedback.
Thank you so much. That'll be super helpful. I will definitely share a link with you all whenever we go into test flight.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, it was a great chat, Suhas. We learned a lot about your app, about product folks. I'm definitely going to take some lessons around the community angle and spread that out in my company as well. But
Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much for taking the time and talking to us. And for anyone who's interested, please connect to Suhas. Try out the product folks, community. There's a lot of exciting newsletter. I personally read them. That Suhas sends out and the team sends out. And obviously, please try out the app if you're already on Android. If not,
Yes.
wait for the iOS app.
I was up. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so
And if
much.
you have the fortune to meet Suhas, definitely do because he's like a wonderful guy, super positive energy. And again, I have a huge respect for everything that you have done so far. And like, yeah, this whole 101 on building community, I think we're going to skyrocket to 10,000 users by the end of this year. I'm just kidding.
Yes, let's
This
do
was
that.
fun.
No,
This
thank
was
you so
fun.
much.
Really so much fun.
Absolutely.
And good
Absolutely.
luck with everything.
Thanks so much, Nishan. Thanks, Shruti, and thanks so much for hosting this. Absolutely fun chatting with you,
Yeah.
and looking forward to the podcast growing as well. So, yeah, looking forward to following the episodes.
Thank you.
Cheers.